Hey, we've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence lately, and I often get the question, with artificial intelligence, what should we be thinking about when we're thinking about our cybersecurity program? And it's such a big question. I think it falls down into three categories. When people think of artificial intelligence, number one is what new threats or opportunities does it propose to your program or your company? Number two, which is the biggest one, is what kind of vectors does it open up for losing data, losing control of data? And then the third one, which is probably the funnest to think about once we get further past those first two, is what are some of the advantages? How can artificial intelligence actually help us? And how can we, as IT leaders, or you as an IT leader, take advantage of artificial intelligence? And there's just so many great things about it. I mean, you see a lot of vendors starting to put this stuff into practice that we've been talking about. Before artificial intelligence, we used to call it heuristics. And heuristics was this idea that if there was some kind of risk or some kind of anomaly or it matched something else, maybe we should raise the flag. And we use this when malware was changed just a little bit to still give it that bite, but make it past some of those definitions that we used to have in the old school antivirus software programs, if you remember that. But we're finally seeing this technology take a hold, and one thing it can do is just advanced threat protection. So it can memorize and know what our baselines are, how users behave, how much data is moving through ingress and egress. And it can take a look at all that and kind of raise the flag that there might be a threat there. It can also hold on to a lot more data. In the old days, we used to have to put our threat indicators or IoTs into our firewalls or whatever, and after a time being we would have to go in and start deleting that stuff because the list would get so long that you could see the appliances just kind of chugging and slowing down trying to go through this whole list of threats every time that it got some kind of email through or data through the firewall. So AI is much better about that. It's also really good about real-time incident response. You take a company like Expel.io does this really well. They've built their product around that. And when we think about like cybersecurity and incident response, as a practitioner, we're not thinking about if we're going to stop the incident, if we're going to prevent it, that there's something like, a status we can get to where we're no longer under a threat. We don't measure it that way. We actually start measuring it in a more mature way that, hey, when we are under attack, what is our time to detect? What is our time to respond once the flag goes up? And what's our time to contain, remediate, and recover? Those are really good metrics, and AI can just do some really great job to help us with a program that's designed around those metrics. We see it enhancing endpoint security, reduction in false positives. It's really quick to learn. I mean, how many times have you gotten the burnout on a security alert because you've gotten in there and you've seen it 100 times, and next thing you know, you're not even checking the console anymore. But it comes with a couple disadvantages, and one of them is a high cost. Um, it can be expensive to implement, not just when we're talking about like a ChatGPT console or a license, but how do we buy products that have this feature in it? And we're seeing products that are based on AI and moving away from some kind of security analyst. And those things are actually costing the same money, where I would have initially expected an AI platform to be a lot more cost effective, but that's just simply not the truth. The second thing is integration. I mean, yeah, these are great ideas, but how do we actually make this possible? What are the traction? Where is that resource between combining the idea and the implementation that we're talking about? And I think there's still a gap there. And then lastly, the adversarial attacks. It's going to be a lot easier. AI is really opening up the playing field for who can attack us and how. I mean, it is much easier for someone who has very little experience to now run a vulnerability scan and to take that data back to look up a CVE and then to understand how to use a tool like Metasploit or how to write a script with Python to actually exploit that vulnerability. So, the pay to play has gotten much easier, and I think that the attack surface, or the population or the volume of threat actors, is greatly expanding, and it's going to continue to expand because of artificial intelligence. So what do you think of that? How are you harnessing the power of artificial intelligence, and how do you feel like you're going to actually implement this technology to help you in your IT program?